All right. So I'm going to start, Mary, with a question for you, which is um, take us back to the time when you first started thinking about forest school, which is a form of unconventional education for Gemma, and what kind of led you to considering that and then choosing that for her.
Before having her, I took care of a lot of kids and I nannied, and I was really interested in child development and believed that play was really important and that we could probably learn a lot from kids and not the other way around. And also being, undiagnosed neurodivergent kid in the 80s and being sent to the principal's office and not being able to sit still and stimming and interrupting and flirting and doing all the things that kind of a hyperactive ADHD kid would do. I was really drawn to the idea of something that didn't require kids to memorize and sit still and behave and let them just be kids. I believe in, divine timing because we ended up at this strange little playground that I'd never been to. And I saw this woman and her kid had been at the daycare that Gemma went to, which I worked at briefly. And I recognized him and they were moving like the next day, but their daycare preschool had just announced that day and started their Facebook profile that day that they were starting a forest preschool. And so I messaged them from the parking lot and we went and met them the next day. And Gemma wasn't their first student, but she was their first student that they didn't know, like from their previous incarnation. So, and it was just like the best thing ever.
Jim, I'm going to turn to you now. So tell me about what you liked the best about Forest School. And then if you could talk a little bit about how Forest School set you up for regular school that you go to now and being successful there. So two-part
Okay,
question.
so I would say that my favorite part about forest school would have to be that it wasn't like you had to like stay still. You didn't have to sit in a desk for like 2 hours straight and then just look at a book or a computer. You got to like run around and kind of explore like what you wanted to explore. So like talking to friends or just like exploring the forest, kind of that kind of stuff. It was just really fun how they wouldn't like have us like just like be still and wouldn't like let us like it was like a full free range with adult supervision, but like full free range. And I think it benefited me very well for the types of kids that would probably be at my real school are like learning that because there was a bunch of kids that would be younger than you or a bunch of kids that would be older than you and they'd all get along. So it kind of taught you for like for like the real school or like real school, like elementary school, it kind of taught you that even if people are different than you, then you should always like accept them and not treat them any different from you. And it kind of set you up for a thing where you were like, okay, so I get to explore like this world. I get to explore this school, and school isn't just all about like being bored. It's about having to make friends and explore the world and that kind of stuff. That's what I would say.
So you had an experience almost a year and a half ago now of meeting a whole bunch of kids that are doing something called road schooling.
Hmm.
You met them all at a water park in northern Florida when they were having a meetup. What was the most interesting thing about that experience and about meeting those kids?
Probably like learning their different ways from like how we would live, like learning how they got to like go different places, like they got to always be on the road, even though they lived in like a smaller place, they all had different ways of working with on the road.
So, Mary, back to you for a minute. So, you had that experience, and then you had the experience of like reading literally every word of Schools Out, which most folks listening to this will not have the
The
opportunity to
honor,
do, the honor, or
the
the burden of doing.
privilege.
Um, what would you say that you've taken away from learning about all these family stories and hearing all these parents' voices through Schools Out?
Well, when we were in Florida, I spent a lot of time like welling up and crying alone, like not in a sad way, but just I was really overwhelmed by, and I think when I think about it, I think it's hope.
Hmm.
I think it's like this, it's so beautiful that people have found a way to be educated and educate and live their lives with some with much consideration to the children and how a fish can't climb a tree but it can swim, and it's amazing when it's in the right environment um and then just all the different ways that there are to get an education, but also learning a lot about all the things that people with a lot less privilege than I have come up against, and how much bureaucracy is involved. I didn't really have a lot of information about that, and it really opened my eyes to, and considering just the state of everything, sort of traditional systems sort of crumbling around us since the beginning, even with the pandemic, and just the way we do things from a normal, quote unquote, like she said, normal school, normal way, just disintegrated. That's where my hope is too. Like it's scary because everything is changing, but it's also good in a lot of ways and more opportunities. And like maybe, we'll get through this, uh,
That's great.
and more kids, having
Right.
an opportunity to thrive and not feel like there's something wrong with them,
Right.
or having an opportunity to learn and not get to go to school.
So I'm going to ask you now a trick question, Gemma. This is not one I prepared you for, so be spontaneous. If you could wave your magic wand and create the perfect school for a
Ooh.
kid like you, what would that be? What would it look
It would
like?
definitely be where there wasn't like any desks you had to sit at. And I think it would be really, really cool if for me personally, for writing, if instead of having like a book where it's like you have to follow this prompt, if you get to like have this thing where you get to have like any prompt you want and you just get to free write, and it can be like a sentence or it can be a long paragraph, but I thought that would be really cool because I just love to free write. I would love it to be like mostly outside. So it would be like instead of if it was raining, then you would go inside, but if it was like sunny, you would go outside. But if you didn't want to go outside, you didn't have to go outside. I just thought it would be really, really cool to have an open range and be able to like kind of like learn what you want. I would like it if you could choose what part about history you wanted to learn, and then for that whole school year, you got to focus on that one part of that history. And then the same with art. Like there's different types of art. There's drawing, there's painting, there's sculpting, there's crocheting. There's a lots of different types of art that is out there. So I thought it would be cool if you could learn like different parts of history and all in one year. But if you wanted to focus on one part, then you could. I thought that would be really, really cool. And it would also definitely be a part where there would be longer recesses, like maybe like 45 minutes instead of 15. That would be probably my favorite type of school.
That sounds great. I want to go to that school.
Me
Me
too.
too. Mary, is there anything I didn't ask you about that you think would be an important, knowing that this is probably going to air on Mother's Day, is there anything that you'd want to say to the moms out there if they're unconventionally education curious, what they might want to do?
Buy your book.
Now, I wasn't really pushing you in that
No,
direction, but
I
that's
know, but
okay.
like I was gonna say go find some resources and learn about all the different options you might have and consider what resources your state and city have. And those are all things that you cover in your book. But also like trust your instincts as a mother and trust your kid, and we don't all learn the same way, and it's good. Like what a boring world it is if we're all doing the same thing, and just play is important.